Bandwidth for all shows on the Aussie Tech Heads network is supplied by Aussie Tech Heads web hosting. For a fast, affordable and reliable Australian server with fantastic support, contact Aussie Tech Heads web hosting at aussietechheads.com.au. Aussie Tech Heads, Australia's best hosting service. Welcome to episode 438 of the Aussie Tech Heads. As you can see, I'm not Glenn, but he'll be back again next week. As always, we're proudly sponsored by ATH Web Hosting. Check out the Aussie Tech Heads web hosting site and sign up for cPanel. Setting up email is a breeze. Aussie Tech Heads web hosting is at athwebhosting.com.au. Due to popular request, this show is hosted by Will and Jason, the top two podcasting hosts in Australia. We're on 3 shows now. You can't stop us.
That's it. We're taking over slowly one by one. We've only got that Aussie Max Zone thing and then we're good.
All right. How are you doing this week, Will?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. It's good to see you back. It's been a while.
Good to see you back.
Yeah.
Tell us about your computer woes.
What are you talking about?
Tell us about your computer woes.
Oh, but yeah, well, most of the listeners would know from last week how things have been. It's been fun, to say the least. I think I've got most of it figured out now. Turns out it was actually my backup causing the problems, not Skype. It's just Skype was triggering it, but it wasn't causing it. Weirdly. I don't know. And then I put another program on last night called BPN, which is actually a DJing program. Sort of like a... Yeah, more like a mixing, like Red Studio sort of program for, song selection, stuff like that. And it's got a really neat feature. Oh. It's got Insta-Crash. It actually crashes as you're making the second click to launch it.
Nice.
Like, that's how quickly it activates. It's fantastic.
Nice. Man, you got all the bad softwares.
Oh, it's going great, busters. It's okay. I'll have Windows 8.
Will highly recommends not using the following products.
Yeah, so just lucky, I guess. But I think part of the problem with the backup software, and I'm slowly narrowing it down, is because I've got like 7 drives in my computer. I think it's freaking it out a little bit.
I got 2. One SSD and one ID.
I got 2 SSDs. So I've got my boot drive and my games drive. And then I've got my 2 drives, my 2 1 terabytes that are my RAID drives for my recording. And then I've got my 2 terabytes that are rated for storage. And then I've got my 1 terabyte that's just a miscellaneous crap drive. And then I've got my old drive out of my NAS, which is actually currently in the system because my NAS died and I need to back it up, and that's the only way to do it. So, yeah, so I've got a couple of drives in there, and I think it's just
7 drives, 4 monitors.
7 monitors.
7 monitors.
Yeah, I'll show you the setup in another couple. It's a work in progress, but I've got making up a cabinet at the moment to put the monitors in, and I'll have 7 monitors set up.
How many gigabytes of RAM?
32.
Yeah. Wasn't it you were showing me a game the other night, and you started up and it's like, your computer system rocks.
Yeah.
We recommend the highest possible settings for absolutely everything.
I thought that was hilarious, actually. I didn't know I was going to do that.
Some programmer's got a good sense of humor, right?
What was that? What was that called? I don't know. The program I just installed.
One of your Steam ones.
Block and load or something. And yeah, you load it up and it starts off and it takes you down this hallway, and it must be doing a computer scan whilst it's doing it. And it gets to the end of the hallway and it's like, oh, by the way, you can turn everything up to the maximum setting if you want.
Are you game to, though?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Let us know the frames per second.
150 odd.
With everything turned on, that's not bad.
Yeah. Well, I've got two. Sorry, I'll have 6 monitors, not 7. My bad. I've got 2.
Oh well, that's a huge difference, isn't it?
I've got 2 cross-fired video cards, so I've got an 8 gig, effectively one 8 gig video card, plus 2 4 gig cards.
And the Windows copes with it. Linux, not quite.
Linux like the one card that functions, like it knows how to use it and it does a really good job of it, but they just cannot figure out multi-card. It just doesn't know.
Poor Linux, still not there.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think if I was using, I'm using ATIs. I think if I was using NVIDIA cards, it would be a different story. But apparently, yeah, the AMD stuff just.
Speaking
still...
of cards, I heard something on a podcast today that Windows 10 has a bit of problem with AMD graphics cards at the moment. So that's not
Shouldn't.
good.
It's pretty native. I don't know. Well, I haven't had any problems in my virtual machine.
Yep.
So,
The virtual
although
drivers,
speaking
yeah.
of the Windows 10, it's not necessarily going to be free for everybody, which is a bit of a letdown.
Is that your
because
segue into a news article that we should be talking about right now?
No, I'm not. I'm not that smooth. But if I was, Windows 10 upgrades won't be free for everyone. Do you qualify? Apparently, there's fine print in there. They had their free upgrade offer where they're saying, basically, they're saying that they'll offer free upgrade to Windows 10 for qualified new or existing Windows 7, Windows 8.1, Windows Phone 8.1 device, blah, blah, blah. Then you read the fine print. It's our intent that most of these devices will qualify, but some won't. And effectively, if you sort of read into that, if you're running Windows 10 Preview, you need to ask if it's properly licensed to run Windows 10. If it's a physical machine, if it's a virtual machine, then you won't. If it's a physical machine with basically a PC that's sold through a commercial and retail channel and comes with a version of Windows pre-installed, you qualify. If it's a Mac with Mac OS that's boot camped, you don't qualify. If it's a homemade PC or a naked PC that doesn't have an OS on it, you won't qualify. If you have a proper license for Windows 7 Service Pack 1 or 8.1, you can claim the free upgrade within a year of launch, assuming that you have a legit copy. And yeah, so Boot Camp doesn't qualify, even though it is technically a legit copy of Windows.
Yep.
So there's going to be quite a few. So yeah, no operating system. Windows XP or Vista, obviously, apart from the factory system, is probably too old to run it anyway. Windows RT can't be upgraded to Windows 10, so it won't qualify. OS X, any version with Boot Camp, won't qualify. If it's pre-installed, a lot of the pre-installed stuff now won't qualify because a lot of the pre-installed stuff on a lot of laptops and things like that don't have a Windows key.
Damn.
It's an OEM copy of Windows, but it only includes personal usage rights, which for some bizarre reason, Microsoft removed personal usage rights from Windows 8.1, which means you can't use an OEM copy to upgrade to Windows 10. So
why do they have to make it so complicated?
I don't know. So just because you think you're entitled to a free copy of Windows means you need to learn how to use torrents. No, I mean means you may not be.
Or you live in China.
Yeah. In which case, you're not entitled.
Doesn't matter.
You're not entitled. You're
not entitled, but you don't care anyway because you're going to get it.
Exactly.
Speaking of making things complicated, thank you, Microsoft. Microsoft will release 7 editions. What's this many of its new Windows 10 operating system? Okay, here's 3. Starter with basic stuff, Home with more stuff, Business with more stuff. That'll do, right?
Yeah. Because there's a huge difference between Enterprise, Ultimate. Well, no, because then you've got the mobile version, which I think they're classing. So there's another version.
Yep.
Then they've got their RT or whatever it is. And then they've got
RT's not going to get it.
Then they've probably got
RT's dead in the ground. If you got RT, you sucker.
Well, but having said that, I was just reading an article about how the brand new Service 3 that Microsoft's just announced will run Windows 10.
Yeah, that'll be Intel or something, won't it?
Yeah, so it's going to be a Service 3, but they're not going to use their own operating system on it. They're going to use their PC operating system instead of their mobile operating system, which is the whole reason they come up with a mobile operating system, so you didn't use the PC. Ow, my head hurts.
Businesses and larger organizations are targeted with Windows 10 Enterprise and Windows 10 Enterprise Mobile. The former provides enterprise-oriented features. Does that mean they're Asian? They're oriented to help protect against security threats targeted at devices, identities, applications, and sensitive company information. Customers of the volume licensing program will be able to use the recently announced Windows Update for Business, which allows larger corporations to roll out new features and technology at their own pace. Enterprise customers can also choose to deploy the new long-term servicing branch of Windows 10 for mission-critical environments. This provides only security updates and no additional features. Software assurance customers can also upgrade to Windows 10 if their subscriptions are active. Microsoft is hoping businesses will turn to Windows 10 Mobile Enterprise for portable devices such as smartphones and smaller tablets. The two Enterprise editions will also show up in other business scenarios, such as deployment in automated telemachines. That's always a good idea to put Windows in those. You ever seen those crash? Hilarious.
Yeah, because
here's some money.
Yeah.
Ka-ching.
Actually, it's a little bit off topic. My boss asked me today, he goes, how do you spell FPOS? I went,
really?
Electronic Funds Transfer Point of Sale. Oh, well, that makes sense. Why
is that what it stands for?
He's like, I just thought it was some weird word that I could never spell.
Tell him what's PCMCI. People can't memorize computer industry acronyms.
That's it.
Microsoft's also going for the embedded market, targeting developers with slimmed-down version of the new operating system called Windows 10 Internet of Things Core.
Yeah, because that's nice and compact. That rolls off the tongue.
Windows 10 IoT Core is aimed at low-power, cheap devices like network gateways, wearables to small computing devices like popular Raspberry Pi 2 boards and Arduino kits. I don't want my ADSL or NBN, which I'll never get, router running Windows 10 IoT. Thank you very much. Consumer and home users being offered Windows 10 Home and Windows 10 Mobile. These will be integrated and able to share data and connectivity in similar fashion to Apple's OS X and iOS desktop and mobile systems. To entice users to upgrade their existing operating systems, Microsoft is for the first time offering 3 full versions of Windows 10, Windows 10 Mobile, Windows 10 Pro, except for the things that Will already mentioned.
Yeah, the mobile devices, yeah.
Users must be running Windows 7, Windows 8.1 and Windows Phone 8.1 devices that upgrade in the first year after launch to qualify to receive Windows 10, except for those things that Will already mentioned.
What I want to know, have you seen a pricing on Windows 10 yet?
It's free, I just said. Oh, you're not even listening, are you?
No, you know what I mean. Like,
No.
have they actually released the pricing structure yet? No, I didn't think so.
End of July is when apparently it'll be coming out. So
I mean, it's not going to matter. It's going to be free or free, so it doesn't really matter.
Yep. It'll be free one way or the other.
That's right. Speaking of free operating systems,
Linux.
Ubuntu, yeah.
Ka-ching.
Ubuntu. So Mark Shuttlesworth, who is...
How much is a Mark Shuttlesworth?
He's worth about a Canonical. So Canonical founder Mark Shuttlesworth, he had this vision ages ago, but it's just starting to come to fruition.
I like
no,
fruit.
That's a different word. Fruit tuition.
Fruition.
It's educated fruit.
It's fruitastic.
He's basically, obviously it's a major Chinese manufacturer. They've made smartphones for a while, a few other different things. But what they're doing now is they're actually releasing a Linux based or a Ubuntu specifically based smartphone. And it's more than just a smartphone in the traditional sense. So what they've been doing for a while is they've been making these sort of, I guess in appearance they're a smartphone, but they come with a full-blown workstation. So basically you get to work, you get to home, drop the handset into effectively a docking station. It comes up, you've got a full monitor, keyboard, mouse, stereo speakers, everything, so it basically turns your phone into a full office effectively. As many other things, but they've been doing stuff like that. So, but what they're looking at doing now is incorporating Ubuntu into that, because Android, they have been using variations of Android and a few other things, but they want it to be more or less like an actual desktop. So they want to basically make it run Windows 8 so you can run Office and all that sort of stuff. But then they're like, okay, well, hang on. If we do that, then we've got to pay these licensing fees. Okay, well, let's just run Ubuntu because they have OpenOffice. They have all this equivalent.
Now, if they have Linux running on there, they could also have an Android emulator running on the Linux, right? Like you've got for your desktop for Windows.
Yeah, you can use Andy. Well, Andy runs on Linux because it's just a jar.
Well, there you go.
It's a VM, sorry. So it runs on Linux. It runs under iOS. So you can run that. You can run Wine to run Windows or
I like
Windows
wine.
apps.
I've run out there. I'll have to go to the shops later.
So as well as being lightweight, obviously, because Ubuntu can be fairly well stripped down just to have, the less code you've got, the faster it runs. So it will be that, plus it will be a full, powerhouse of stuff. And with the hardware they're using in phones these days, you're talking octa-core processors and stuff like that. So they're pretty intense. Yeah, they're pretty intense systems. So if you've got Ubuntu with a decent graphics card running on an 8 core, even if it is only like a 2.2 or whatever it is, running on an 8 core processor, with the 16 gig of RAM and all that sort of stuff that's built into the phone.
4K screen.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be a pretty intense little mobile phone. And from what I can gather, it's going to have
free gloves that come with it so you can hold onto it without burning your hands.
It's going to have a normal sort of smartphone switch. So when you're using it as a smartphone, it's basically scaled down. It just runs entry-level stuff it needs to run. But then when you dock it, it runs these full-on hardware, software things. So, it's pretty cool. So it'll be interesting to see. Where that leads. Hopefully that comes to fruition, because that would be. I mean, there's been a few attempts at it, but none of them have really worked. Either the hardware's just been too slow and too painful, or they've used something like. Or they've used something like Android, which is great on a mobile device, but really clunky if you try to make it desktop. So
and the JVM's not that great for doing high quality 3D graphics and stuff, which is why people a lot of apps on Android are just made in Java, but the really hardcore ones that do the 3D graphics for street racing and stuff is still in C++.
Yeah, that's right.
If ever anyone's never seen one of our podcasts, why not? And this is the usual format that they end up taking. So if you like this format, you'll like all the other stuff.
Yeah, well, don't forget we've got Obsidian Loft, which was primarily our Minecraft. It is slowly evolving into voxel-based gaming and gaming in general, and a lot of senses. As things change, obviously, Minecraft's popularity is plateaued. I wouldn't say it's waning, but it's plateaued at this point. So we're changing with the times, and we also do Old Fart Geeks, which can also be found on YouTube and all the usual places as well. And that's basically me, myself, and Warlock. And Glenn's already committed to come on in a couple of weeks once his house gets repainted. Yep. Which, by the way, is why he's not here tonight.
The fumes.
Because his house is being repainted, and apparently, I don't know, lead fumes are bad for you or something. I don't know, but so we have Old Fart Geeks, which is basically us sitting around talking about technology that we used to have
from days gone by.
Yeah, which ironically I have a story about that later. But so check us out. You can find us on the Aussie Tech Heads Radio, where we've got our shows on there, and currently they're ranked like 1 and 2 or something. Just FYI. So
you can listen to lots of Australian podcasts streaming from AussieTechRadio.com. Two Blokes Talking Tech. The Obsidian Loft, Minecraft Podcast, Old Fart Geeks, Geek Sphere, Your Tech Life, and more.
Yep.
So check that out. You can stream it to your device, stream it to your desktop. It constantly gets updated with new episodes of all of those podcasts when they come out. And you can also apparently selectively pick the best ones, i.e. Obsidian Loft and Old Fart Geeks.
That's it.
Turns out.
You just put them on repeat and go for it. And
if you like Milo, you go to sleep listening to us, which I don't know if that says anything, but
I'm not sure if that's a good thing. I have to admit, and this is sort of something I found quite interesting. I'm honestly, if anybody does listen to the crossover shows, they listen to those, and I really thank you guys for the support, especially for Old Fart Geeks. I get Obsidian Loft is very niche, so we're not expecting huge numbers on that. But the numbers we're seeing on Old Fart Geeks is absolutely amazing. And for the guys who do crossovers, and I'll mention this next week when we do a recording on Old Fart Geeks too. But I really want to thank you guys. It's really, inspires us to continue to do what we do, because we can see the numbers are there and people enjoy it. So
for a couple of introverted guys, what don't talk much outside the house, we talk a lot on the internet.
That's it. Not in the entire world, but we won't talk to our neighbour.
That's why I got this T-shirt in the cupboard that says, "I'm a lot cooler on the internet."
I need to get me one of them.
That was one of those. I think, where'd I get that from? Best and Less. My daughter wanted to buy something in there, so she was looking through girly stuff. So I was like, oh, I'll just have a wander around. Oh, I got to get this one. That sounds really cool.
And I can't say too much this week. However, next week you need to listen to this show because I will be having a very special announcement that not many people know about.
Dun, dun, dun! You'll hear it first here.
That's it. Well, actually, you'll probably hear it first on Facebook, but you'll hear it second here.
I don't get Facebook read out to me by an audio reader, so I probably won't hear it on
You don't?
Facebook.
What? What's wrong with you, man?
Yeah, that would be nuts. Can you imagine listening to people's
no.
posts from Facebook?
No, I couldn't.
Yeah, you could get little things like the little Chumby box that you can sit in the corner
Yeah.
there and it'll read out your Twitter feed.
Yeah, because that's not annoying enough.
Sometimes you think 140
146
characters is way too much for some people.
Too much free license.
Okay, Australians say they have been left without medication or food after online payment service PayPal double dipped into their bank accounts by accident. Customers expressed outrage on the company's Facebook page on Thursday when they learned that they wouldn't be reimbursed their funds for 3 business days, a total of 5 days out of pocket when the weekend is factored in. One distressed customer said she had run out of medication which she needed as a matter of survival and received no assistance when she contacted the company. Another customer published a snapshot of his bank account showing he'd been temporarily robbed more than $1,000 as a result of a duplicate transaction. Other users complained that they'd been on hold to PayPal for up to 2 hours on the phone with no response. Customers were flooding onto the Facebook page from early on Thursday, several hours before PayPal finally published an official statement on the page. It told customers they didn't need to contact the company as they would be automatically reimbursed, but it would be 3 days later. PayPal Australia would not respond to questions as to how many were affected, other than to say it was aware of the error and would reimburse all affected customers. So, see what happens when PayPal is going to be extracted from eBay? It all goes.
I was about to say, is it coincidence?
Hasn't happened yet, but we had the same. The company I work for just got acquired, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, ever since you got acquired by so and so, your whole company's gone to crap." I'm like, nothing's happened yet. We just made the announcement. It hasn't actually started any acquiring procedures. Every server is where it was. Your account is where it was. The same people work here. Absolutely nothing changed from last month. And just people take anything.
I'm actually just checking my PayPal because I haven't actually checked it. I don't think I had enough money in there for it to come out twice, so it shouldn't.
Doesn't yours automatically come out of the bank account to top up though when it's missing?
No. Well, yeah, but that bank account hasn't got any money in it either. So.
Like all your other accounts.
I actually have a PayPal bank account.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I've got a separate one. Well, 2 reasons. One is I've got the PayPal here or whatever it is, the mobile machine that lets you pay in. So it was just easier to have a separate account going into it so I could monitor what was going in. But of course, then it has this benefit as well. If something does go pear-shaped or someone logs into my PayPal account and they get my details or even my debit card that's linked to that account, there's usually only enough money in there to pay. I usually transfer it across as I'm using it. So it's not a big deal. I'm not worried if somebody hacks my PayPal account. Like, it's not going to achieve them anything.
You'd have 2-factor same as me, right?
No, I turned that off because I was in an area a few weeks ago. I did the same with Google. I was in an area a few weeks ago where I had no phone signal. I
actually bought their little secure ID card, which had a changing code that was timed in with the chipset to the PayPal servers. And you could push a button on there and it would generate the number that you could type in. But then the battery went flat, so I've just been using my mobile. But I had the same experience not that long ago, and I was just here, which is very close to the CBD, and I was purchasing something. I sent through about 3 SMS codes for secondary authentication, and eventually, after about 10 minutes, 3 codes came in all at once. So,
well, that was it. I was out west, and I was using the Wi-Fi that the post office had, but there was no phone signal there. So I'm like, I had the same problem with Gmail because I was logging in from an unknown IP address. It went, "Hey, I'm going to send you authentication." I went, "Well, you can try." So I've had to turn it off.
That was
It's
the
great.
Google was the only one I set my own password for. Everything else uses LastPass. But when I get a new phone and I have to look up the password to log into my Google account so I can sync stuff, but I haven't installed LastPass on the phone yet because I haven't installed anything on the phone yet. But I need to install, and it's like, okay, instead of going to my desktop, I might be out at the shops where I just bought it. I want to try it now. I'm not one of these people who would,
Yeah.
oh, you must charge this for 4 hours before you use it. Nah, that damn thing's coming out of the wrapper and
Yep.
switching on straight away. Same as
That's
this,
right.
which is my new toy. Check this
Have
out.
you befriended Glenn yet?
Glenn's my
Yeah,
friend.
Glenn
Yeah,
bought
he
one.
let me do his show.
No,
This is
you know he
my
bought one last week.
yeah, my new Fitbit Surge. It's an awesome watch. It's got a swipeable screen, just like the Apple one. Tells you your steps and calories and floors and all that stuff. And it's got a nice little clock which has a radial of rays that go out from the center, and the further they go out means the more activity you did during that minute. So you can see, between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. when I was going into the office, I did a lot of walking. And then while I was in the office sitting down answering phone calls all day, I didn't have that much movement. And then lunchtime, the spikes start going high again. So he's got me on a challenge for Fitbit. I'm in 4 different challenges at the moment because I start one with some friends. I start another one with some other friends. Glenn invited me to one, then my ex invited me to one.
So you're giving the Pebble the flick?
At the moment, yes. Because I really want Fitbit, and I had the Fitbit 1, which clipped onto my pants, but it was on my pocket, and every time I pulled out hanky or keys, it'd fall on the floor, and I'd forget about it. But the main thing was, my ex actually got my daughter the thin strip one, and it just has plastic lugs that stick into the rubber band, and it's extremely difficult to push 2 lugs into the band while it's on your wrist. And even if we did it in the morning for her, when she goes to school, she'd be running along doing athletics for school. And when her arm moves like this, it goes flying off over there somewhere. So she has to stop the race that she's in the middle of, run over there, pick up the Fitbit, come back, and everyone else has finished the race, so there's not much point. So we upgraded her. She got my Fitbit 1, which she can clip on here, there, everywhere on the clothing and stuff like that, and still get measured, and it has less chance. So then we were returning the thin one. I was like, well, I don't want a thin band one. I would like to upgrade. And we said to lady in Office Works, this one's really crap. It just keeps falling off and you can hardly put it on in the first place. And she sat there 5 minutes fiddling with it, trying to put her on her arm. We're like, see, you can see exactly why this happens. It's obviously a terrible product. And so we said, we just want to swap it out, and I want to get this one, the Surge. And she had a look around the shop and she said, oh, the only one that we've got in stock is the same as the one you brought in. You're like, do you think there's a reason why that one is still on the shelves, not bought by anybody, and all the other products in that range have been sold out?
Yeah.
Because they're good and that one is not.
So
So after a bit of chatting, we got a refund and then went to a different Office Works just up the road, and they had this one. So I was like, yoink, win. So I was very happy with that. But yeah, it does a lot of good stuff. If you do your 10,000 steps goal for the day, it vibrates and has this like explosion of fireworks go off on the screen. Which got me the first time I didn't know that would happen. So I'm just walking along, suddenly, bzz, I'm like, what the hell's that? And psh, 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 psh. I was like, oh, that's way cool. I love that.
dear.
Really good stuff.
You're
Fitbit's
easily amused.
awesome. I know. Not getting an Apple Watch. Not going to get maybe Android Wear one time, but I don't want to wear 2 things. And Fitbit's really good for exercise, which I need to do lots of, which I don't. So
Well, if they incorporated a Fitbit incorporated one of the other million wearable devices with a Fitbit, it'd be great.
yeah, they need to open up their API so that there can be more devices that use their product. But I think they want to sell the hardware. So,
Yeah, I think they'll get over that eventually.
but this one also does your heart rate, because it's got the you can probably see underneath there
Yeah,
is
the metal
some LED.
pin. Yeah.
You can see the LED lights flashing, and there's a little camera in there to measure the reflection back. So it measures your heart rate, which is currently 86 beats per minute resting, which is not too bad.
Yeah, that's not bad. You've only got the same cardiovascular system as a 95-year-old.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, is that, Sonny? You have to speak up for wearing a towel.
I was having a conversation the other day with somebody over why I still use solid spinning discs for my video recording and my storage devices, given that SSDs now are quite cheap and much faster. So instead of having my RAID arrays that I have, I could simply use SSDs. And this is the reason. Research suggests that solid state drives have an inherent flaw. They lose data when they're left dormant in storage for periods of time. You're thinking, okay, fine, a few years, whatever. Nope. We're literally talking a drive stored in a room at 25 degrees without power can last for about 2 years. If that's at 30 degrees, it's about a year. If the temperature goes up to 40 degrees,
Which never happens in Queensland.
in Queensland, yeah, it's as little. At 40 degrees, the data retention is as little as 10 weeks without power.
Nasty.
So
Important
yeah,
data. Keep it on a solid hard drive.
yeah, so don't use SSDs as data storage devices. In something, it's okay in probably a PC where it's only going to be powered off. But even in standby mode on a PC, if the computer's plugged in, they do get a trickle charge. But in laptops, same thing. But if you've got a laptop stored up without the battery in it, you leave the battery out. And that's why if you store a new laptop, if you store for a couple of weeks, the battery's still flat. And that's why, because it keeps the trickle, yeah. So if you store your laptop without the battery in it, which you are actually supposed to do, that is technically a correct way of doing it, especially if you're shipping it somewhere. Say you're shipping it to get fixed, you take the battery out because you're not allowed to ship lithium-ion batteries. So you take the battery out, you ship the laptop, you do the right thing. It's sitting in the back of a truck at 65 degrees for 3 days till it gets to where it's going, and then it sits in the warehouse at 50 degrees for another couple of days, and they finally get around to looking at it. That's quite possible by the time they get it, it's got no data left on that drive, or at least corrupted data.
Yeah.
So it's not all drives. Some brands and some types and styles are more susceptible to others than others. But they're saying especially things with the high-end performance drives, such as Apple MacBooks, tend to not suffer quite as much because they are a higher-end drive. They still do, but not as badly. In average conditions, average situation, the data's designed to last about 2 years.
That's why Apple don't go for cheap and nasty.
Yeah, but I mean, even that's 2 years at what they call ambient, which is up to 30 degrees. So once again, for every 5 degrees you rise in temperature, it cuts the retention time in half. So at 30 degrees, it's 2 years. At 35 degrees, it's 12 months. At 40 degrees, it's 6 months. At 45 degrees, it's 3 months. 50 degrees, it's a month and a half. So you're down to 6 weeks just by storing it, say, in your car. If you leave it in the boot of your car,
that's it.
So
Toast.
60 degrees is what, 2 weeks? 65 degrees is a week. 70 degrees is like 3 days. And it can easily hit 65, 70 degrees in a car.
And that doesn't mean because you take it out in the afternoon and use it at home and then put it back in the car that you've just cancelled out that and it starts again for another 2 weeks. You've used up this much already. There's only that much left.
Yeah. So just something to be aware of. For the average person, probably not a big deal. But yeah, just be careful. It is something if you are planning on using them as storage drives, like what we traditionally do with video recording. Video uses a lot of data. If you have a proper video setup where you're recording in RAW, so you have a dedicated video recording machine, you're recording in a RAW format, it's about a gig a minute. So a terabyte drive's only 1,000 minutes. No, 100 minutes. Hang on. No, 1,000 minutes. Yeah. So if you're doing somewhere like Twit, for example, the Twit network, they would do that in a day. They'd use a drive in a day. No problems at all, probably. And what they would traditionally do, once they've recorded it, is they'll pull that drive out and throw it on the shelf. You can't do that now.
No.
If you're using SSDs to record to, you can't do that. So just something to be aware of.
It may be fast, but it's not long term.
That's it. It'd be a great way to buffer it. If you wanted to record it to the SSD, that'd be great, and then copy it across
Just
onto a
don't store
spinning
it there
drive.
forever.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, Telstra.
Good old Telstra.
Telstra. Always
Gotta
something
love
going
Telstra.
wrong. At least they stopped
Wait.
us getting an NBN. Got to thank them for
That's
that.
right. That's exactly.
Telstra's Asian telecommunications provider PacNet's data center has been targeted in security breach some time ago, but they just figured it out now. Lucky. Better late than never, right? Right? Hey? The breach occurred prior to Telstra taking ownership of PacNet, and Telstra was made aware of it on finalisation of the purchase on April 16 this year. Group Executive of Global Enterprise Services, Brendan Riley, said Telstra had taken immediate action to protect against the security of the network once it was informed of the breach. Mr. Riley said the PacNet corporate IT network is not connected to the Telstra network, and there was no evidence of any breach of the Telstra's network. We've had no contact from perpetrators, so we don't know the reason behind it. I'll tell you, it's because they could. That's the reason. Or who was involved. Some kids these days. Telstra said the Australian Federal Police were a customer of PacNet and may have been affected by the data breach. Isn't that ironic to the max? But there's no evidence they took stuff. So
Yes. There's no evidence they didn't.
they probably didn't because they're good boys.
Yeah, that'd be it.
The AFP said in a statement that it was notified about this matter recently. The AFP has been advised that the breach was confined to the business operating network of PacNet. Therefore, it's assessed that no secure or classified material has been compromised, a spokesperson said. So,
And speaking of Telstra customers made more complaints about the service provider than any other telco users in the last 3 months,
colour me surprised.
placing the company at the top of the complaints list for the first time in years. According to the TIO, which is the telecommunications
It's actually got
industry
better than
operator,
Vodafone? What?
from January to March, Telstra customers made 14,830 reports, and that's just the ones that got through and couldn't be bothered hanging the phone up because they're on hold for 3 hours in the last 3 months. 10% increase in the previous quarter. However, compared to first 3 quarters of 2014, complaints to Telstra fell by 1%. And then if you continue to read down here, it gives me somewhere. Optus continued its bad run with 44% rise in new complaints over the first 3 months.
Go Optus.
And Vodafone, where are we? There's a thing in here about Vodafone somewhere. The number of complaints in the telecommunication industry fell 8% overall. Where is it? I can't see it. But there's one in here saying how Vodafone, because they've actually, in the last few months, they have spent a bucket load on their network and really picking their
better late than never.
Yeah, well, that's it. But it's really paid off because they had, out of all the telcos, they actually had the lowest
number of customers.
Complaints.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I guess that stands to reason. Lowest.
I got a couple of techie friends and they said, man, we love Vodafone because there's no other customers on our cell tower. We get everything super fast.
Well, yeah, my boss is, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to read the thing. My boss is with Vodafone and has the same coverage as Optus at least, and if not, he actually has at work. I'm with Telstra and he's with Vodafone. He's actually got better coverage at work than I do.
And if people ask about like TPG and other stuff like that, Virgin and things,
Optus,
just remember they're all Optus.
Yeah.
There's only very few, sprinkle of Telstra resellers. Nobody resells Vodafone. Everybody else is Optus.
Well, if you do want the coverage, use Aldi. Aldi do Telstra.
Yep.
It's on the older bands, 900 and stuff like that. But Aldi's my other work phone, which I thought I had here, but I don't. My old Note 2. Yeah, it's with Vodafone.
Did they switch on the next G yet, or is it still 3G? I know they were going to.
They're going to. They're waiting for clearance from the communications to get the frequencies cleared up. But yeah, this is my Note 3. This has got my Telstra card in it. My Note 2's got my Aldi prepaid in it. And Dad said I can get signal a lot more places with my Aldi card than I can with this because the lower frequencies travel better. So especially indoors, like if you go into a supermarket, I quite often can't get signal on this, and I can get it on my Note 2. Now, bear in mind the Note 2 actually has a smaller in the antenna in these actually run the full length down both sides.
Yep.
In the Note 2, they actually only run halfway down, so the aerial's only half as big, and I can get better signal. The Wi-Fi isn't not as good on the Note 2. Like, I can get my Wi-Fi signal on this, I can get right down to the backyard. On the Note 2, once I leave basically the house, I don't get the signal anymore. So
Yep.
that tells you the difference in the internal power of the signaling and stuff like that. But signal-wise, I can't fault Aldi. I've never had a dropout. I've never had a missed call because of it. I've never had signal issues. I've never had anything like that. So
850 megahertz for the win.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it makes sense though. If you know how radio frequencies work, you'll
This
understand
way goes long and far. This way goes short.
That's it. 850 megahertz, is a fairly, relatively speaking, is a fairly flat wave. So it tends to travel through walls and through buildings, whereas especially once you get up into the gigahertz range, you have a very perpendicular wave, perpendicular? Yeah. An uppy downy wave, which
goes like that. Clunk.
Yeah. And that's it. Because it's so vertical, instead of traveling through walls, it just hits them and bounces off. So if you ever tried to make a range repeater, you'll know exactly all about that, trying to make a range repeater for a Wi-Fi. You soon learn that you can use basically chicken wire to bounce the signal with holes in it, because the signal's so broad that such a big thing can catch it, whereas to use it for a lower frequency, you've got to use a solid shape instead of... What's that? I just had the word, then I completely lost it. The bowl shape has a word starting with P.
Parabola.
Parabola, that's it. I knew it right up to the second I was going to say it, then it just went, nah, that's it, I'm done.
Screw you, cat. I'm going home.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. So,
a collection of tech industry giants, including Facebook, Google, Apple, and Microsoft, as well as civil liberties organizations and internet security experts, sent a letter to US President Barack Obama on Tuesday, warning of the unintended consequences of any policy meant to weaken the encryption technologies that provide internet communications. The White House has been weighing whether to mandate that companies use only forms of encryption that provide law enforcement with the means to unscramble for access, a so-called backdoor. Critics in the technology industry are concerned that a backdoor for law enforcement in the United States would be a backdoor for everyone, including other governments and hackers. One Yahoo executive likened the proposal to drilling a hole in the windshield. We urge you to reject any proposal that US companies deliberately weaken the security of their products, the letter to Obama said. We request that the White House instead focus on developing policies that will promote rather than undermine the wide adoption of strong encryption technology. Google, Facebook, Apple, and other tech companies have been moving to encrypt customers' communications so that the government cannot monitor them without going directly to the customer. The company's efforts have been criticised by some in law enforcement who argue that toughened encryption will stymie their investigations. Oh no, you wouldn't want your investigation stymied.
No, nothing worse than having a stymied investigation.
The White House is weighing a proposal in which parts of the key to unlock digital encryption would be held by the government and part would be held by the companies. The system was articulated by Michael Rogers, director at National Security Agency, in a recent speech at Princeton University. He called for a compromise in the form of key escrow, where the government would hold on to part of the encryption key and companies would hold on to the other. It would be secure with multiple locks, big locks. Bad idea, and here's the thing. Are US companies going to be able to sell devices and software products that have a backdoor that the US government can see into, but the other countries' governments cannot see into?
Apple's been doing it for years, so I don't see why no one else should be able to.
Well, Apple have since thrown away those keys now because they got sick of it being handed all of these subpoenas and stuff saying, well, you can unencrypt it, so you need to. And BlackBerry had the same thing. They had to put hackable BlackBerry servers into third world countries where they wanted to monitor everything. So it's like, not a good idea if the US can look into your stuff, but your government can't. So also the problem is those governments would be buying those products to install in their networks. Now the US government can read all the stuff in their Chinese networks and the Russian networks and everybody else.
You seem to think this isn't already happening. I hate to burst your bubble, but
this is official.
it's much in the same line of people don't think that your phone calls get tapped. Like, I hate to burst your bubble on
Of
that one. It's
course
only been
not. It's
happening for 40 or 50
secure.
years. Yeah, so it's secure straight to them. It's not your neighbor can't hear what's going on, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been happening. Look, what was it? Pakistan or something like that. They had a whole heap of BlackBerry servers, and the government went, "Hey, you need to open these up so we can read what's going through them."
And they're like, no. And they're like, okay, we won't use your servers. And they're like,
Yeah, so
okay,
they
yes, we
just
will.
they shut them down. They said, "Okay, fine, take your product out of our country." So they basically blocked anything BlackBerry, and then BlackBerry went, this is our only market left. We better we better do something about
Everybody else got smart.
So, I mean, it's been happening for years. It'll continue to happen. Was it... there's another country installed... Was it Russia or someone installed a whole heap of routers for another country to get... It was like in UAE or something. They got a massive contract to install all these routers. And like 7 years later, they were upgrading all these routers, and one of their techs went, I think these have been data logging.
And they were like, whoops, how did that happen? It was an accident, just like when Google drove around with their trucks and accidentally caught everybody's passwords and email and stuff from the Wi-Fi's.
Yeah, that's it. You mean all the encrypted data?
Encrypted.
all one or two lines of code that they captured. Yeah, that was a huge problem there. Honestly, if it was a choice between the government having my data or Google having my data, Google can have my data.
They got my data. That's it.
Well,
the Google's
yeah,
has
that's
it.
right. They've already got it. But if I had a choice and one of these two companies must control everything I do, Google, thanks.
You ever have a look at that page you can go to on Google about yourself, and it shows locations where you've been based on the location data of your phone, and you can go to, what was I doing last Tuesday? And you can watch a map draw of all the places that you walked to or drove to last Tuesday, because the Google location services is pinging the Google servers constantly. And it's like, well, we don't use the data ourselves. It's just so if you're using an app and it's like, oh, you go past a shop, it can say, oh, there's a special in that shop, or don't forget your milk or something. Those particular apps can do that. They record all of the stuff. So Google knows everything.
Yeah, I'm actually just looking up mine now. I think I had that turned off, but I haven't done a factory reset on my phone since then. So, no, apparently I have no history.
Ah, there you go.
I don't exist on Google, apparently.
How do you expect to get good Google Now cards?
Yeah, I know,
I
right?
ask you.
That's really interesting, because I'm signed in. Yeah, I must have somehow deactivated that, and it actually worked.
I had one problem. I deactivated Google Now because the setting for Google Now synchronized between devices, and my Nexus 7 tablet by Asus from, the Google one, from 2012, when it upgraded to KitKat, was slow as heck. And they said one of the things that is slowing it down is Google Now, so you can disable that on the tablet. So I disabled that on tablet. Then it was automatically disabled on my phone because Google synced that setting across.
You can disable that sync too.
But now I don't use the tablet anymore, so I might as well just re-enable the Google Now stuff again.
Speaking of Google Now, if you have a Galaxy S6 or an S6 Edge, and you've noticed your battery life has been pretty pathetic, turn off Google Now. Basically, since since April 23rd, there's been an issue with Google Now on those devices, on the Galaxy S6 or the S6 Edge. And it hasn't worked. The Google Now feature hasn't been working correctly on those devices since then. And apparently, the previous 18 months has been fine. Just something in one of the updates broke it. Google knows about it. They are working on a patch for it. At the moment, there's not much you can do about it. Any phone that runs the Qualcomm processor is perfectly fine. There's no dramas at all. It natively supports the feature at chip level, so there's no issues. The S6 and the S6 Edge run the Samsung Exynos processor, which is their own processor. But as I said, was working previously. It's just slowly started to play up. But there's a lot of reviews saying they were gone from charging their phone every night to the phone lasting 36 hours or so on a single charge. So,
So you should have got an LG G4. Go get LG, they're great.
so
Samsung.
basically, yeah. So disable that feature, which honestly it doesn't do anything for you anyway. For the average person, you're not going to use it. Just disable it. It's going to save battery life on any device to some degree, even if it's only a couple of percent, because it is one of the. It's like push notifications. It's always running, so it's certainly not going to hurt if you want to disable it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, give it a go, see how it goes. There has been a lot of people saying it's fixed the issues. So the other thing you can do, obviously, across the board, no matter what smartphone you've got, when depending on where you are, disable Wi-Fi, disable GPS, disable Bluetooth, disable all especially on the Galaxies. If you bring up your
I've got this lovely little app called Tasker, and it detects when I get near home, switches on Wi-Fi so I can use Wi-Fi and turns the volume up on notifications and phone ring. When I leave the house, it switches off the Wi-Fi when it detects I'm more than 100 meters away. When I get to the office at work, it switches on the Wi-Fi so I can use the office Wi-Fi and switches the phone volume down to 1 and also notifications down to 1 so it doesn't disturb anyone in the office. When I leave the office, get more than 100 meters away, switches it all back up again and turns off Wi-Fi.
That's it, and I got the same thing. I use a similar sort of thing, so it knows when I'm getting in my car, so it activates Bluetooth. I put this into the cradle, and this activates the car mode, but it doesn't turn Bluetooth on by default.
Ah, that's a shame.
It can, but I found it wasn't turning it back off when you took it out of the cradle.
Ah, okay.
So I use Tasker, turn it on, and then I don't have that issue. But you can see on if you've got a Samsung, you can bring up all the different things you can turn on. Everything from screen rotation, Bluetooth reading mode, mobile data blocking, power saving mode, multi-window screen mirroring, Wi-Fi, S-Beam,
Apple
NFC,
would say that's
SU,
too much choice and it just confuses you, so we reduced it to
hands-free
2
mode,
settings.
smart stay, smart pause, smart scroll, sync, flight mode. Flight mode obviously disables all that, but every one of these you turn on uses more power. So the more of these you've got off, like generally if I'm in real conservation mode, I'll basically have on, like when I was traveling up to Gympie last weekend in the train and I wanted to use my phone, but I didn't want to, have to worry about charging it, although I did actually have a portable charger. But anyway, I basically turned everything off except mobile data and sound was the only thing I left on. Everything else I had turned off. So, and my battery was fine. I only had to use like 20%. So it doesn't hurt anyway. If you are having battery problems, not that I've noticed, like, the batteries are getting bigger and bigger in these things. This thing lasts me 2 days without even trying. The Note 4, my Note 4 that I've got that Sony's using, that easily. I can pull that on charge Friday morning, take it off charge, go away Friday all weekend, come back and throw it on the charger Sunday night.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Yeah, they seem to last pretty well. So they're definitely getting better.
Yeah. Did you have any stories to wrap up?
Yeah, I got a couple. I'm sure people have heard of Blade Runner. I mean,
What's that?
Oh, it's
Is
this
that some
movie
newfangled thing
this
that's
guy
just been
made.
released?
I don't know. Some guy made a movie on it once, and things happened, and there was glass. That's all I can remember.
I remember that dino was in it, wasn't it? Is that the dino from the movie?
Yep. So a Mr. Werther said that he wanted to create an internationally inspired street food extravaganza. It would be a place where New Yorkers go to discover many of the destinations that Bourdain has brought into our homes for the last decade. The layout was more chaotic than current Hawkers Market found in New York. It's meant to be crowded and chaotic because that's what the Hawkers Centre should be. Should activate all your senses. It's supposed to be a mashup of food, style, smells, tastes, and visuals. So basically, this guy's decided that he wants to... Oh, no, no, too. Wow, I keep forgetting it's that old. He wants to basically start a cafe inspired by Blade Runner.
Nice.
So that'll be pretty neat. We'll see how that pans out.
Is he a replicant?
Yeah, probably. He looks like one. Unfortunately, it's going to be 2017 before that's open. But also, I was trying to find the story before the show started, and I couldn't. A guy in Melbourne wants to do the same thing.
Ah.
So his is supposed to be up and open.
Guess where I'll be going.
So, yeah, that's right. So there's a couple other just really nerdy stories that have to be mentioned. the story I mentioned before that I'll probably go in deeper in Old Fart Geeks. The best pre-iPhone smartphones.
That was number one. I so
Yeah,
badly wanted that.
Nokia N95. Probably,
Screw
honestly,
you three.
in a lot of respects, still the best phone I've ever had. Battery life was amazing. Camera for the time, 5 megapixel camera was unheard of. 720 video recording. Had, as you can see there, the face slid in both directions. One side revealed a media player. You flick it the other way, it revealed a QWERTY keyboard.
Bish Nokia ever.
Yeah, it was amazing. It really was. And Nokia's operating system at the time was still was Symbian? No, what's it called? I can't think what they called it.
Tizen?
But yeah, hey,
Tizen?
I can't think what it was. But yeah, at the time it was amazing. Like I was on 3 at the time, which their plans were great back then. But loved it a bit. Still probably my favourite phone. A mate of mine had the Nokia N95, which I never actually had. It was basically a direct competition to the not the N95, the N96, sorry. I think it was. It was released about the same time as the N95. It was basically the same phone. It had the 5 megapixel camera, had all the same stuff that the N95 had, except it didn't actually work very much. It tended to overheat, lock up, break. Yeah. That sort of started the death knell for Nokia at that point. And it was only 12 months later. So they went from having a... Oh, yeah, it actually had a full GPS in it, not just an AGPS, which was pretty amazing back then as well.
Well, that was all right. They would last because nobody would buy that stupid iPhone rubbish that some other company was bringing out.
That's right. The Nokia 3310 was the last, I guess, candy bar phone, you'd call them. It was the last of that era.
I think I had a 3210.
The 5110 was the
my first one, yeah.
mainstay. And I actually had a customer the other day ring up and ask for a battery for their 5110.
And you said, what?
Yeah, we got a stock because they're a standard battery.
Ah.
Yeah,
nice.
They still use a lot of cheap...
You said, what year is this?
Yeah, a lot of cheap digital cameras still use them. A lot of in-car cameras. There's a lot of stuff still use that battery. So we had one in stock, but yeah, still had a fully functioning 5110. Then so you had the 3310. I had the 3320, I think it was, which was the same thing, but the face slid backwards and forwards like the Matrix.
Oh yeah.
Nokia.
And this one's the Picard one, isn't it?
The N-Gage.
N-Gage.
Yeah.
Number one.
It was a great idea that failed in every aspect. It was useless as a phone. It was hopeless as a gaming device.
And they could have had the game chip socket on the side, perhaps, instead of under the battery, which meant you had to disassemble the whole phone just to swap games. And
man, at the price on that, it was something stupid. It was like $800 or something when every other phone on the market was $400. Look, great concept, poor execution. That just killed Nokia something. Just killed them off completely. We got our Motorola Razr. I even had one of these as a secondary phone.
Is that the one that had iTunes on it? They put that on one of the Razrs?
Yeah. No.
Could hold 100 songs.
It had a media... It definitely had a media thing to it, but I can't remember what it was. My biggest gripe about this phone, and I don't know why, given that it came out the same time as the N95, it had a VGA camera on it.
Ah, right.
The camera was appalling. That was my biggest complaint. I love the little front screen. It let you know what was going on. It felt nice in the hand. It flipped really nice, so the flip never broke like the early Ericssons.
Yep.
But just the camera was and it only had like 64 meg internal memory or something. It was almost really well done. Hip top.
What the heck?
Telstra's hip top. It was Telstra's version of the N-Gage, effectively. It was called something else overseas. Had a full QWERTY keyboard with slide out. It came with MSN Messenger built in. It was the first community phone. Basically, remember how Facebook tried to bring out a phone?
Oh, yeah.
This was kind of just before that. Unfortunately, it really sucked. Was slow, buggy, crashed a lot. Tended to just fall apart. It was really expensive. Didn't actually work. Chewed battery a lot. Other than that, it was fantastic.
Except for the fact that it was crap, it was great.
The Sony Ericsson K750i, my mate had one of these, and it was at the end of the era when these sort of phones were dying. The candy bar phones, it was at the end of life. But it was, that's it. The next one down, the W810, was the Walkman phone. This one just had the 2 megapixel camera, I think. Had standard MP3 player, 64 meg memory, yeah.
Right,
But it
something
used
like that,
proprietary. It used the stupid memory stick Duo proprietary Sony crap. But they had another attempt at it, which this one is actually the Walkman one, the picture they're showing. And it was actually the Walkman W series of phone. And this was probably the last one they released that was any good. It still only had a 2 megapixel camera, had virtual no memory. It still used the stupid Duo memory, but it actually had really, they went back to their roots. They put really high quality audio components in it. The audio of this phone through good headsets, absolutely brilliant. Like, it just, nothing come close to the audio quality of this thing. And somewhere around here, I've actually got a original Walkman MP3 player. It's a 128 meg MP3 player. And the same thing in that, the audio quality of that thing, absolutely amazing. Just so clean, so pristine, you know. That was the only thing going for it. Other than that, it's pretty useless. But I actually almost bought one. I ended up buying the N95 instead, but I nearly got that just because I was so blown away by the audio quality of that phone.
Right.
It had a hardware audio chip in it that actually could uncompress MP3s.
Nice.
So if you put a 64 or a 128 megabit, no, bit, song on there, it would actually have the ability to uncompress it and restore a lot of that audio fidelity that you lost.
Nice.
Brilliant.
What's this brand? Never heard of it before.
I don't know.
Is that a fruit? Oh, I know. It's like Apple.
It's some brand that some people use. I don't know.
Apple.
But BlackBerry. This is probably the last of their known phones. Was the Pearl.
The Bold was terrible. The company I worked for supporting, every time I'd have somebody ring up and go, "My BlackBerry's crashed," I was like, "Do you have the Bold?" "Yes." "How did you know?" "Because I have to reflash the firmware in every single BlackBerry Bold in this company. Every week I had probably 3 or 4 of them. I just have to reflash the firmware because you turn it on, Java error. Turn it on, Java error. Reflash it, works fine. Turn it on, Java error."
The Pearl was the last of their really popular ones. Ironically, it was the first one to incorporate a lot of the multimedia stuff. It had a camera, it supported video playback, music playback, it had Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff built into it. So strangely, it was their most popular device. It was also the last device that did any good. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but
I think the Curve and the Torch were not too bad. Torch was the touchscreen one.
I liked the Curve. The Curve had the keyboard, didn't it? Yeah. I quite liked that one just because it had the keyboard. I figure if you're going to have a big chunky device, it might as well have a keyboard on it, you know. Briefly speaking of, we're probably running way long, but hey, briefly speaking of BlackBerry, of course we all know the US president only is allowed to use BlackBerry because they're secure, they can lock them down, blah, 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 blah. That was until 18th of May. President Obama is now known as POTUS, and for those of you who aren't any good at anagrams, President of the United States. Just throwing that out there. And of course, Bill Clinton was on the ball with that one. You know, welcome to Twitter. One question: does the username stay in with the office? Asking for a friend. And as we know, Hillary, of course, is running for that next. But President Obama came right back. Good question, Bill Clinton. The handle comes with the house. Know anyone interested?
In FLOTUS.
FLOTUS.
First Lady of the US.
That's it. So, 840,000 followers in the first 4 hours.
They broke the record for the most followers in the shortest time on Twitter.
Yeah, he actually uses an iPhone to tweet with, which anybody who knows him knows knows that's not unusual because he doesn't like the Blackberries. He actually was trying for the longest time to get the iPhone through. They have allowed it. It's under lock and key, basically, unless he wants to use it for sending a tweet or something like that. He can't carry it on him because, as you know, they can be traced and tracked and that sort of stuff. But they do have one where one of his handlers basically give it to him and go, here you go, make your tweet and things like that. It's actually him. He does the tweeting. There's none of his handlers, nothing that. Everything that's on that account's his. And I do have to admit, I'm not a big fan of him in general. There's not much I can stand about him. The one thing I do like is the way his description is actually put up on Twitter. He describes himself as a dad, a husband, and a 44th president of the United States in that order. So I'm actually quite impressed with that if he means it. If he doesn't, I don't know.
It's all marketing, right?
Well, I mean, that's how he got into power in the first place. That's what they do, subliminal marketing. That's his job. But if that's legit, good luck with him. I hope he does well. They are saying that he does try to... Well, obviously, there's millions of tweets getting sent to POTUS, but he does try to spend like a few minutes a day, because that's all he really can afford, going through it, and he does apparently reply to some tweets. So
and block a lot of trolls.
Oh man,
are there trolls on Twitter? No, never heard of that.
I don't. Would they be called trolls? It's not really.
Somebody at work today learned out what trolls were because somebody had said, "Is so and so trolling?" He's like, "What the hell does that mean?" So I had to explain it for him.
A couple of quick ones I'll quickly get through before we wrap it up. Of course, we now have LG now has a 99-inch, because apparently 100-inch was too bad, TV. That, as you can see, it literally just rolls out onto your wall. It is, the 55-inch one you're seeing here. It's an OLED screen. It's 0.97 of a mil thick, so it's less than a millimeter thick.
Nice.
It weighs 1.9 kilos.
Nice.
And yes, that's actually it there. You can see her rolling it onto the wall and sticking it onto the wall. So that's up there in the yes, please, I'll take 7 category. Because,
after you win the lotto.
Could you imagine that in a 99-inch size and then deciding, I need a bigger screen, so then you get another, 7.
It'll be you. It's you all over.
I know, right? KFC, speaking of all things geek, have just basically their mats that the mats they put on the bottom of the trays to keep the trays clean, because plastic trays are hard to keep clean, are now Bluetooth keyboards. So while you're eating your Zinger burger, you can use a Bluetooth keyboard, which is spaced really, really weirdly. And I'm sorry, I just noticed that. If anybody's looking at the live feed, I'll zoom in on that.
How do you type it?
Have a look at the layout of that keyboard. What is with that? Anyway, so yeah, if you order yourself I was going to say a Big Mac, but those other things that KFC sell, you can get yourself a blue. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder how many of these go missing. And I was reading the review, and it said in the first opening week, every single one was taken home.
I wonder why that was. Gosh, that's strange.
Unfortunately,
also, the first thing I thought of.
It's only available in Germany, which is kind of annoying, but
and will no longer be available anywhere
else in the world
due to the cost.
You can eat in, but it's a $15 surcharge for eating in now.
So when you're actually in the restaurant, what are you Bluetooth typing to?
To your phone. That's sitting on the bench.
Connect it to your phone so you can type to your friends. I am eating KFC and typing on a KFC mat.
Yep.
LOL.
That's it.
ROFTL.
In the, talking about how we've now got all these streaming video, we've got Stan, we've got all these ones that have popped up. Spotify, who we all know and love.
Go Spotify.
Yeah. They're basically now expanding into podcasting, which is great for us. They're also doing news radio, which is, your normal commercial radio stations. And they're getting into video streaming, which I reckon is really cool. So they're going to basically compete with Netflix, Presto, Stan, Foxtel. It's strange there's no comma in there, guys. You're kind of screwed up. So that'll be interesting. There's no word on pricing or anything like that. It'd be neat if they had a free service like they do with Spotify, you have that certain limited free that they have,
Ads.
and then of course you have the paid. Yeah, that's it. And then you have the paid service after that. So that'd be pretty cool if that was a thing. Which I mean, it will be a thing. It's just a matter of when that gets rolled out. And the last little tidbit I have, which I know some people that really need this. People have a habit of random texts and impulse buying when they're drunk. So why not combine two of your favourite sports? So this is only available in the States at the moment, but I can see it's going to happen over here. So if you send a text message to hey or 513378, you sign up to the service. The way the service works is that every Saturday at 2 a.m, they'll send you a random text message for random crap, which is awesome because in this one here you can have a Nessie spoon, like a ladle that looks like the Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, when you're ladling your soup. $16, gotta buy it, done. Also, you can have a giant piano that you can put on your floor, $100.
Like the movie Big.
So
when you're
much
watching
want.
Tom Hanks and you're drunk.
Yeah, oh, amazing, right?
What's
And
the
2
product
o'clock
called?
is-
Drunk shopping.
Yeah, drunk shopping. It describes itself as a shopping experience that delights in sloppy judgment.
That's where Amazon get a lot of their sales.
By now, right? Yeah, so
Drunk people at 2 a.m.
I really hope this becomes a thing over here. Somebody who's got a few $1,000,000 start this up, will you? Because I'm in.
I like to see the posts on websites. Man, you should see what arrived on my doorstep this morning from Amazon when I ordered when I was so high on the weekend. I didn't know it was coming. Surprise!
Yeah, I didn't even know I ordered it. So I did that. Not drunk shopping, just shopping in general. Completely forgotten I've ordered stuff on eBay.
Yep.
Because coming from China, it takes like 6 weeks to get here, and then all of a sudden you're like, what's that? What? Hang on.
At least you open yours, not like somebody else we know.
There's what are they? What is that? I have no
I
idea.
needed that for something. It's obviously something I really, really needed 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's that's the problem. Usually by the time you get it, you don't need it anymore, or you've bought another one. You completely even forgot that you did. The thing, actually, they turned up today. They're survival. Paracord.
Yep.
You hear of paracord. The people use it for their shoelaces and stuff because it holds like 200 kilos for a strand of this stuff. But these things are called survival bracelets. So they go around. They're woven paracord, and they've got a little D shackle on one side that locks into the other one. So. And the D-shackle's like 200 kilo load rated as well. So basically you've got an emergency kit. So you've got 20 meters of paracord and a little D-shackle. So if you ever need to pull yourself up a cliff, you're sorted.
And that's episode 438 of the Aussie Tech Heads with Australia's the top 2 Australian podcasters.
Who can't speak, but hey,
You can follow our show on Facebook at facebook.com/Aussie Tech Heads, on Twitter, twitter.com/Aussie Tech Heads. Watch the videos on YouTube, youtube.com/Aussie Tech Heads. You're picking up a theme here. Or visit the website aussietechheads.com.au. Brought to you by ATH Web Hosting. Yeah. We'll catch you all again next week. See you later.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.